which is an item submitted by Councilmember Posey on single-use carryout bags. Councilmember Posey, would you like to start by speaking?
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone that's here for their attendance, and I'd also like to thank the kids from Pegasus. What a bright generation. Disagree with them, but they did well-researched, intelligent, articulate presentations, and unfortunately they're gone, but hopefully they're watching and their parents are watching. They should be applauded. So the issue isn't whether or not to appeal thin film bags labeled as single-use. They're really multi-use bags. Most of us acknowledge that these bags aren't great for the environment. I'm going to argue that they're harmful to the environment. What's most harmful to me is that the choice was taken away from shoppers. And to add insult to injury, government conspired with the grocery industry and the paper bag producers to mandate a 10-cent charge. 10-cent charge is punitive and designed to retrain you and to punish you for making a choice for paper. We should all stand and oppose to that, say, wait a second, we're grown-ups. We can make a choice. And I mention that because, I stood up and spoke against the plastic bag ban early on. And on some of the blogs I posted, said, aren't we adults? Can't we make our own decision? One of the responses I got was, no, we're not. And in fact, I got an email yesterday, and I'm going to read you some of the text. If I can find it. So bear with me. Well, I'll get to it. We can all agree that improperly disposed multi-use bags is harmful to the environment. But following the same logic, why are we stopping at plastic bags? Why don't we talk about banning disposable diapers? I'm not kidding. Disposable diapers are used once. They're not used twice. They're a biohazard. I don't need them. I don't have grandkids. It doesn't affect me. Maybe we should ban that. We should also take a look at maybe banning smoking in cars. Cigarette butts land on left turn lanes. They land on off-ramps. Nobody's talking about that. We're talking about single-use plastic bags. One of my favorite writers is an economist named Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell said, weighing benefits against cost is the way most people make decisions and the way most businesses make decisions if they want to stay in business. Only in government is any benefit, however small, can be considered to be worth any cost, however large. That applies to the plastic bags. Banning plastic bags comes at a cost of convenience, a cost of freedom. Do I use plastic bags? I don't. When I mentioned retrained, I think I am retrained. I use reusable bags, and I've always used paper. I always use paper because I shopped at Trader Joe's. I shop at Trader Joe's because paper bags stand up in the back seat of my car and plastic doesn't. But to not have that choice and to have to pay 10 cents for paper when I go back to Trader Joe's creates resentment. And we shouldn't have to do that. We're a free society. We should be able to choose, and we should be able to let our retailers tell us if they want to charge, they don't want to charge. They gave them to us for free. If the goal is to improve the environment, the ordinance fails to deliver. And other people have mentioned this. The EIR even acknowledges that emissions will increase with the reduction of plastic bags. Paper bags do increase greenhouse gas emissions. They weigh 10 times what plastic bags weigh. 10 times the weight is more fuel or diesel or energy to produce the paper bags. And in that environmental impact report, it says that it acknowledges emissions will increase, but to an acceptable level. Is there an acceptable level to increase emissions? I asked that of the environmental community. Is that an acceptable answer? Yes, it's okay to increase emissions. That's part of the cost. My position, like I said, has been consistent. We're conscientious, responsible citizens. In the email I got yesterday, I asked, do we need government and retailers, or government telling us what to do and telling retailers what to charge for bags? And I quote, I'm not going to mention this guy's name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he writes, no, we clearly are not adults and don't know how to pick up after ourselves. Well, maybe he doesn't. but I do, and I think all of us in this room do, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't care. I care, I pick up, so do you. Government has no place in acting price controls. 10-cent bag fee adds nothing to cleaning up the environment. It's just money back in the retailer's pocket. WIC and SNAP clients don't pay. They've used 38 million bags in California this year. That's $3.8 million that they didn't pay. I urge you to read SB 270. Have you read SB 270? SB 270 exempts thin film single-use plastic bags made from soy and corn. Those are biodegradable products. Those can't be used. Those can't be supplied by grocery stores. So it's not about the environment. They're also advocating a specific specification for reusable bags. If you read SB 270, there was a lengthy discussion, lengthy specification on what a reusable bag is. A reusable bag has to survive 175 trips to your car from the store. It has to be able to be washed 125 times. It has to have a volume capacity of 5 liters. It has to be able to carry 22 pounds over 175 feet, and the seams have to be sewn. Furthermore, it has to be 2.25 mil thick and have a tag in it that designates where it's made and a contact name of where it's from. That's what's required for your retailer to sell that bag to you. These bags, most of these bags here that we have, probably couldn't be sold at the store. If they sold them without those specifications, they get fined $1,000 a day. Second offense is $3,000 a day, and the third offense is $5,000 a day. Is that the kind of draconian regulations that we want for plastic bags? We can, as adults, we can choose not to take plastic bags. Vern Pat Nelson, if he's still here, I applaud him on his styrofoam campaign. Not use styrofoam. Let's educate the consumer. Let's educate the retailer, but let's not ban it. Let's educate on plastic bags too, or at least, the very least, let soy and corn bags be supplied by the grocery stores. For me, repealing the plastic bag ban is about putting the choice back in the hands of the voters. I'll live with what the voters decided in November 2016. The referendum's going to get this on the ballot. It'll be on the ballot in November 2016. The voters will decide. If the voters want plastic bags banned, they want government telling their stores how much to charge them for paper bags, then so be it. I'll live with it. If that's what they want, that's what they're going to get. So, a couple of other people mentioned that China's banned plastic bags. China's a communist country. Taiwan also banned gum. There's no gum in Taiwan. So, is that what we want? We want to ban plastic bags like the Chinese? We want to ban gum like the Taiwanese? Why not? So, we can argue about what the impact was to the environment and what the impact was to the bags that are on the street. We really can't. There is no empirical evidence. There's fewer bags? Maybe, but we don't know how many bags there were before the ban. Nobody has that data. We have anecdotal data that I see fewer bags, I see fewer bags. Well, how many fewer bags do you see? How many fewer bags do you pick up? There is some data from San Jose, there is some data from some cities, but we don't have the data here. We can't get the data because we're not an island. We have cities around us, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Fountain Valley, all supply plastic bags. We also hear from some detractors that say, who would spend $1 in gas to save 10 cents on a bag? Well, I'll tell you who. The people that commute home to Huntington Beach from someplace else that drive through Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, and Fountain Valley. They do it every day. And I understand the beach. I live on Main Street. I've lived there for 15 years. I love downtown. I love Huntington Beach. We picked Huntington Beach. My wife and I, everybody's probably heard this story before. We looked from Manhattan Beach to Dana Point, picked Huntington Beach because we love it. I love the ocean. I'm not an environmentalist, but I'm environmentally conscious. Telecommute, drive a diesel car, recycle, use paper bags and reusable bags. I don't want to trash the ocean. I don't want to trash the beach. I just want liberty. I want freedom, and I don't want the government telling my retailer how much I should pay for a paper bag. Because if charging 10 cents for a paper bag for me is good, why isn't charging 10 cents a ton for broccoli better for me? Why isn't charging $10 for a can of Coke better for me? We could go on and on and on. And the plastic bag issue may be a small issue, but it's an issue that's a cumulative issue, accumulation of many issues, and it started with seatbelt laws, helmet laws, styrofoam threats, plastic bag bans. It goes on and on and on. Wearing a helmet is a good idea. I ride a motorcycle. I have since I was 13 years old. Wearing a seatbelt is a good idea because I drive a car and I always wear a seatbelt. Talking on a cell phone, does that need to be banned? Maybe for some people, but I talked on a cell phone before it was illegal, never had a wreck. Do we need the police following us and writing tickets for stuff like that? I don't think so. Anyway, if we ban the bag, you guys can still get to choose. You can choose plastic, you can choose paper, and you can choose reusables. So let's everybody have the choice. And if you want to keep plastic bags out of the market, then educate. Educate and advocate. Or get out to vote. Thank you.
Is anybody else wishing to speak? If so, thank you. Councilmember O'Connell.
This issue is very simple for me. It's also about personal freedom. It's also about responsibility. When I look at these numbers from the Cal Recycle, basically under SP 270, the revenue can be anywhere from $126 million to people in the state of California for the cost and benefit to the grocers. It's very simple. I believe in protecting the ocean. I believe in the ocean. I believe in the environment, but I also believe in personal responsibility. When I get plastic bags, I recycle. And it's very simple. Let the people choose. I believe in freedom. I've been in too many countries where government has overstepped the boundaries and imposed unnecessary laws on people. So it's very simple for me. Let the people vote. If the people want to ban the plastic bags, I will accept that. And I'm looking forward to voting on this tonight.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, for me, this was never about the bag itself. It was about personal freedom and personal responsibility. And we've heard a lot of different things. One that stood out was it's an old school way of thinking. Personal freedom is not old school. That's the Constitution. And I would hope to see more of that. I really believe in helping to preserve the environment, conserve. I work with the Scouts. That's our big thing. One of the speakers said, "Hey, leave your camp better than you took it." That's our responsibility. That's our responsibility as adults to teach the youth. And by Pegasus, they're getting an earful of learning over there. But that's our responsibility as parents. That's our responsibility to represent that type of conservation. And for someone who also served in the Marine Corps, like that gentleman, we swore an allegiance to protect the Constitution and these rights and to be able to have these freedoms. So it's not an old school way of thinking for me, but I really believe in personal responsibility, and I think this overreach could happen in so many other aspects of our life, and that's not what we're here for. We are here to get this city in the right direction financially and get our streets fixed and do all the things that a municipality does, but to intrude into our homes or to tell us what to do, how to carry our groceries, that's not really our responsibility. And there's stores, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, they had systems in place that worked, and people shopped at those places because they liked those systems. This doesn't necessarily, if we repeal it, tell the stores they have to give it. It's still an option to the grocer. And the grocer's lobby is really out there because they're making a lot of money. So it's either the plastic making a lot of money or the grocer's making a lot of money. It's money on both sides. So I thank Councilmember Posey for bringing this up because I do think it's more of government overreach than an environmental issue.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Firstly, there are a number of things that irritate me, but the 10 cents is clearly a bribe, and if it were not for the 10 cents, the people from the grocery stores would be up at that podium complaining and not wanting a plastic bag ban. I come from my training is a medical background. For 30-something years, I was a practicing orthodontist in this town. But probably more importantly, for 9 years, as I went through high school, college, and dental school in Boston, I worked in a research lab at Harvard University in the nutrition lab, which is arguably one of the two best facilities in the country. And what concerns me about the reusable bags is, and I just read something recently of some research, 98% of people don't wash them. Many of these bags I see, if you put them in the washing machine, you'd be calling a plumber because they'd disintegrate. And thank you for bringing up that information about the so-called requirements for a reusable bag. And what they have found in cities that have adopted this is that the visits to the emergency room of hospitals for intestinal problems have increased. And of course they have. An unwashed reusable bag sitting in the hot trunk of a car, I couldn't think of a more perfect petri dish to allow the growth of all kinds of problems. How about meat leaking just a little bit, or milk, or whatever? So it's a health problem. Also, I found some comments tonight rather disingenuous, and those comments were, let the people vote. Well, when this ban was originally considered, I brought before this council about a year ago a proposal, different membership of course, to let the people vote. And I was shot down 4-3 because that group knew better. So now, the same people who were aligned with that viewpoint are telling us to wait for a vote. And that's fine, because that's what's possibly going to happen. Does anybody know where they are on the count for reconsidering it? Jim? Oh, I thought you were raising your...
I do.
Yeah. I'm not yielding, just for that question.
Are you asking about
The signatures. The signatures? Yeah, it's over 800,000 right now. 800 and 800,000. And they need 500. So they're about 365,000 over what they need.
Okay, so it looks pretty likely that there will be a vote in November of 2016, and in the meantime, if I understand the law correctly, and anybody can correct me on this, if that, I guess they haven't officially certified the 500 signatures, but when that is done, the bag ban statewide that was supposed to go into effect in a few months will be suspended, and they will wait for a vote of the people in November of 2016, and that's fine with me. Also, the plastic bags. I see plenty of people in my neighborhood, or I should say I used to, using plastic bags to pick up after the dogs. And now there's quite a bit of evidence on the sidewalks that they're not picking up. And I remember my first visit to Paris, and it was very nice and all, except you had to really watch where you stepped in the area that I was, which was a pretty good area, because I guess their culture was not to pick up. And I have very good hearing, by the way, for an old guy, so keep that in mind. But I was walking about a month ago in my neighborhood area, and there were these two ladies. I got to clean this up a bit. There were these two ladies across the street, and they're probably, into the B8 room, that far away. And they both had little dogs with them. And one said to the other, since we don't have plastic bags now, how the hell am I going to pick up this excrement? And the other one said, well, if the council was so wise to do it, let them give us something to pick it up with. In the meantime, I'm just going to leave it. Honest to God, that's what happened. But we don't have a dog anymore, but one use we do in our house for the recyclable and the non-recyclable, we have a fairly good size thing in the kitchen, probably about this big, and I'm a good environmentalist, so I like to wait till it's full before I throw it out. However, if you have something like fish or something really nasty, I put it in or my wife does as well, in guess what, a plastic bag. And I put one of those ties on it. I hope the hell they don't ban those, because I don't know what I'd do. But my point is, there are uses for the plastic bags. Another point, and I'm not going to name names here, but as to economic impacts, there is a chain in southeast Huntington Beach, and it's adjacent to Fountain Valley. And somebody finally got a manager of one of the stores, so you won't know which one. And so it's both the same thing, and I don't even want to name a name, but let's say there was a market called Musino's or something, a chain. So they were both of the same chain. And one of the managers admitted that business, this was about 4 months ago, business had declined 21% in the Huntington Beach location and had increased 23% in the Fountain Valley location. Wonder what that had to do with the plastic bag ban. And one last thing, we've been hearing all night that 128 cities and counties, key cities and counties, have banned plastic bags. Well, there's about 480 cities in California, and I don't know how many counties, but I'd bet there's at least 20. So that means a total, if they're talking about cities and counties, of 500. And 128 have banned. That's 28% of the cities and counties in California. What that means is 72%, in their wisdom, have not banned plastic bags. So I think in all our decisions in this regard, we have to weigh all the factors involved. And my position has not changed from the previous, when this came up before, and I will be supporting your motion, sir. Thank you.
Councilmember Dalgleish.
Thank you for all the previous council comments. I would also like to acknowledge the children that were here this evening from Pegasus. I saw my own daughter in one of those girls this evening, and I can assure you, even if I didn't want to, I've been recycling since she was probably about 8. I didn't have a choice, and so I had to use, we've been using bags for a long time. When this first came up last year, there was just something that just didn't sit right with me when I first heard it. It was not a well-thought-out ordinance. It wasn't something that was really, really given a lot of time and consideration. As the other council people have alluded to, Huntington Beach is surrounded by Westminster, Fountain Valley, Costa Mesa. So when Huntington Beach makes the decision to go do something, we can't do it in a vacuum. There's other cities that impact our decisions as well. So sometimes it may be planned, it's a good thing to consider things regionally. Same as fireworks. I mean, here we are, we're Huntington Beach. I know, they go to Westminster, they go to Fountain Valley, they buy their fireworks. I think education is vital for all of these items. But at the end of the day, it was the 10 cents that really did it for me. And I'll tell you why, because I could even live with if the state comes out and says, you know what, we're going to collect it, but we're going to give it to a conservation or environmental cause. So to the point that was mentioned earlier, you don't see any grocers here. We met with the grocers this week when we were in Sacramento. We met with the plastic people. There's a very good chance if they think about this smartly, and it does get, they gather enough signatures and it doesn't go on the ballot possibly, that they can come to an agreement rather than having the money just go to the grocers. It could go possibly to that. The reason I asked that gentleman who spoke about Manhattan Beach is they didn't have a 10-cent fee going to the grocer. Our city down the coast, Dana Point, who absolutely takes care of their city, they passed an ordinance. Their business community was in favor of it. They did not have the 10 cents. So I really applaud all the people that came this evening. It's a very, obviously, very serious issue for everyone. It is for us up here. But I do believe at the end of the day, the people, the residents of Huntington Beach really did want to weigh in on this. And so now we'll have our time. But I just think, based on what I've been told by us, we cannot change this ordinance. The only way it can be improved is if it is rescinded. Correct, Mr. Gates? Repealed, okay. And if it's at that time, we can either come up with something better, or we'll just choose to wait till the election in 2016. But I'm not going to repeat everything was said. I sometimes do know, though, in issues like this, it's so much easier to say no. No is very quick. You know, when you say yes to something, you have to be thoughtful. You have to really think it out. I applaud the Surfrider Foundations for your contributions to our community. I've volunteered many times myself cleaning up the beach. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? Because we are impacted by cities and irresponsible people in my world that throw stuff out, crap on the street. I have a neighbor who does the same thing. So I pick it up and I put it in my trash can because I take ownership. This is where I live. This is where my business is. This is where I raise my children. My friends live here. I want my city to take care of itself. I want people to have that passion about the city that they will pick up a piece of paper if they see it on the floor or the ground or out there. They won't just let it blow away. I happen to walk in the Bolsa Chica, and guess what I do? I take the plastic bag with me and I fill it with trash. And when I get to the end, I put it in the trash bin. One of the issues in the Sustainability Committee that was at the Chamber, yes, I think to Mr. Vern Nelson's point, again, we can do without styrofoam, certainly. But when we had all the stakeholders sitting around the table and we found out what really it cost to do that, the energy was involved to, do the styrofoam, recycle it, the cost to the local restaurant person who owns it. I mean, what I'm trying to get at is just saying no and putting in a ban is not necessarily always the answer. You have to think about the unintended consequences. And I feel that voting for this tonight is that. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot one thing. Vern's name came up, and I completely support something that type of outreach to the local business and even the city involvement in giving them an award or whatever. That's, I think, the way you go, is to educate. And I just wanted to thank Vern for his comments.
Mayor Pro Tem Katapotis.
Yes. When Councilmember Sullivan brought this up to bring it to a vote, I was in agreement with that, except for AB 270, which was right around the corner, which I had good information that the governor was going to sign, and to me it was going to be a waste for us to actually, take ours back, take the ban back from Huntington Beach, and then end up with a couple of months later with AB 270, which the governor did sign. And as you can see, I did some research on the signatures, and I think they're 865. They need 500,000 to put it on the ballot in 2016. I must have got 300 emails, and you know what? I appreciate that. I love hearing from everybody, both sides. I really do. I mean, it's our job. And to listen to you here tonight, that is our job. And there's a lot of people I know very close on both sides of this issue. But I am for the people making the decision. And that's one thing I am for, that I've always been for. I voted to have fireworks go on the ballot, and I would have went with Councilman Sullivan to put plastic bags on the ballot if it wasn't for AB 270. So with that, a lot of the emails from people that want to keep the bag ban had said that people are really getting the idea and bringing their own bags. Well, that in place, then they can make that choice now. And I think with Carcio, former council member Carcio, he and I, we voted to take it to 5 cents, where it was more feasible as far as the cost of the plastic bag, and then 0 after that. That didn't pass. So I've been kind of, on the issue here where I was trying to move that along and maybe change some things that, like Councilwoman DeGlaze was saying about changing some things about what the bag ban was about. So I'm all for, if they have the signatures, and they only have to verify 500,000. If they have 365,000 over from talking to the state, they believe, and they're only doing a random sampling. So it's pretty much a given that it's going to be in the 2016 ballot. And I'm always for the people to vote, and so I think we can repeal it now, and I'm going to support you, Councilmember Posey, on this, because I believe that always that the people should vote on such controversial issues.
Yes or no? Councilmember O'Connell.
Well, now we got this. I just wanted to speak to what Mr. Vern also brought up about education people. I think it's very important that we do educate people so they have choices, and that's why also I believe in my Posey's repeal, and I will be supporting it, and I will be more than glad to second that when the time comes.
So I wrote down what I was going to say so that I could stay focused, but I have added a couple things. I actually wanted to get out one of my 2-3 dozen economics textbooks and bring up some of the economic terms that apply here, such as a public good, which is something that is prohibitively expensive for individuals to create. So that's a place where the government can step in. For example, security, locally police, nationally, our military. I would consider clean air and clean oceans one of those. Negative externalities, where an individual's choice for themselves provides negative consequences for others, and the economic incentive for that individual to make the right choice just isn't great enough to prevent them from making a decision that affects others. That particular one reminds me of when we did ban smoking on the beach, and part of the discussion was, I have a right to poison my lungs. Yes, you do, but you don't have a right to mess up the air I breathe. And the motivation for that cigarette ban on the beach was actually not clean air. It was clean sand and the amount of cigarette butts that were being left on our beach. Someone mentioned the tragedy of the commons. I won't tell you the whole story, but I would urge you to look it up, because the commons that are referred to in the tragedy of the commons are Boston commons. And it's a story worth reading. So with that, I'm going to focus on the other thought. I've heard several times that this ordinance was not well thought out and not a lot of time was spent on it, and that just factually isn't true. It was, our ordinance is based on a model ordinance, I believe came from Long Beach, that had been vetted, and we copied it. And then we, as a city, I believe we were the first city to add an extra step of creating an environmental impact report, which took several months. In fact, there was a council election between the time that this was initially proposed and the time that the council that ultimately approved the plastic bag ban was on council. So it was not a, it wasn't not well thought out. It was very well thought out. It was very well vetted. And I appreciated that Councilmember Posey referenced the environmental impact report, because I was curious if anybody had read it that wasn't on the council at that time. And well, I have to mention, I also was very impressed with your ability to rattle off the conditions for the bag under the state law. And while I'm on that thought, because it's not written down here, if we repeal our ordinance, we will have to go with the conditions of those bags. However, if we leave this one in place, then we do not have to go with those conditions. So I just thought I'd throw that out. So let me go back to my list. Throw that out. That was a very funny pun. Okay. So my concerns, first of all, environmental. And I've said this before. When having to make a choice, I'll err on the side of the environment, and I've had occasion to say that more than once on this council. It's more than just a litter problem. Somebody said we all know not to litter. Someone brought up, first graders know not to litter. I actually anticipated that. So I asked my 4-year-old yesterday, hey, is dropping your trash on the ground a thumbs up choice or a thumbs down choice? And he gave me this big frown and big thumbs down, So my 4-year-old knows not to litter. Now, he's a pretty smart guy, but, if you want, I can check with the rest of his class to see if they're aware of it. It's a waste problem because, one person mentioned that they have, 60 bags in storage to reuse. Well, another person said that that the average family has 15 bags per trip. That's only 4 trips to the grocery store. That's about a month worth of groceries. What do you do with next month's bags? Because I don't think most of us are able to use as many bags as we get at the grocery store. But the bigger environmental problem is that plastic doesn't biodegrade. All those little pieces that people show us in the sand or inside a fish or around a bird's neck, those are pieces that have broken down and will break down even further to the point where they're microscopic, and they're in our water and they're in our air and they will be in our bodies. And we need to stop that with plastic. Plastic requires a lot of oil to make, and oil's not a renewable resource, and oil is scarce. And as we budget our oil use over our lifetimes or over our planet, if I was given my last allotment, I would rather drive home from the grocery store than carry my groceries home in a plastic bag. As far as the charge, I've been in favor of the charge. Paper bags have negative environmental aspects as well. That's been pointed out many times. However, they are from a renewable resource, although it takes a while to plant trees, and they do biodegrade. But the idea behind the charge was to disincentivize using those paper bags. And that has happened for a lot of people. And, I'll admit, the merchant support was important in this ordinance. And so that was also a motivation for the 10-cent charge, to help those merchants recuperate their costs for when paper bags are used. But The main purpose was to discourage the use of one-time paper bags. By the way, you can get your money back from those paper bags by just reusing them next time you go back. Target will give you 5 cents, Sprouts will give you 10 cents, just for bringing your own bag, whether it's paper or multiple use. You can earn that money back. And the reason I bring that up is because we do have a charge for environmental purposes on items we use, containers we use. It's called the California Redemption Value. So, did we vote as a local community or as a state on whether we want to pay 5 cents for every soda because cans and bottles aren't good for the environment and there needed to be a way to incentivize people to use less and to recycle? No, we didn't vote on that. Now, that fund goes elsewhere, and I hear that argument, but the other part of that, and you can get the money back, but you can also earn your money back on the bags. But there aren't really many other alternatives to buying the soda in the can other than not drinking soda. There are alternatives to using a plastic or a paper bag. Thankfully, most of my viable alternatives to the ban that people have mentioned in the past didn't really come up tonight. Educating people. Again, who doesn't know not to litter? We could put up more signs reminding people not to litter, but then we would become littered with signs. The policing one, that's always a favorite of mine because I don't really think that the intention is to have so many police that we feel like we're in a police state so that we won't litter. And that's really what it's going to take on this topic, because when it comes to priorities of our police department, here's what was in today's log. And these are just the highlights from the last 24 hours. A suspicious device in a car, which made the news. Attempted suicide, a power outage, which took out several signals, swatting, which is a fake 911 call, and the SWAT team had to go out and check the house, turned out to be fake. Suspicious vehicle that turned out to have weapons and drugs in it, amongst other issues. That's what the police are dealing with. That's why when you think you see them standing on the corner and they don't act on your littering, it's probably because they're watching a suspicious vehicle trying to decide what their next action is on that. I don't want to live in a community that has so many police that their focus can be on littering as well as all their other responsibilities. Although I would like more police because it would be nice if they could have more help in their jobs. So in the end, tonight will not repeal the bag ban. Tonight will start the process of repealing the bag ban. And the first step is an environmental analysis, which will cost, estimate is about $5,000. This analysis, as it was mentioned by a speaker earlier, will likely state that repealing the ban has a negative effect on the environment and that cannot be mitigated. I'm not in favor of spending $5,000 of taxpayer money on a report that the majority of this council has said it will ignore. What I do appreciate about tonight, though, in this discussion tonight, is that I know people learned a lot. There was a woman from La Mirada who said, I didn't know about any of this issue. I'm going to start using reusable bag. That was worth the discussion tonight. When we had the styrofoam discussion a few months ago, I know that our local Denny's at 5 Points, they changed from styrofoam to paper cups because of that discussion. Tonight has educated a lot of people, and hopefully that has helped, but I'm disappointed that this council is placing their own personal ability to use a plastic bag over the greater good of a clean environment. I'll be voting no. We do not have a motion, so Councilmember Posey?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager and the city attorney to take the necessary... Sorry. I'll start over. I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager and the city attorney to take the necessary steps to repeal the Huntington Beach Municipal Code Chapter 5.95 Single-Use Carryout Bag Ordinance. It is my understanding that repealing the ordinance may require additional environmental analysis, which could cost about $5,000, take 3 to 4 months to complete. Do I have a second?
Councilmember O'Connell?
I'd like to second that motion.
All right.
I got it?
Just go.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay. I don't see any further lights, so please vote.
The motion passes 6-1. Hardy, no.